how you too can get back in your heart, in your body, and get out of the mental loop that we get in those moments, whether it's with our children or in life, that aren't so enjoyable. What happens in these moments is we get stuck in a phase of our brain. I'm going to walk you through all the neurology behind that in a very simple way so that you understand exactly what's happening. This gets us stuck in a mental loop where we are playing out past and future and getting into a phase of fear and anxiety and stress and running from that rather than from a place of alignment and empowerment and calm and ease so that we can make better decisions, we can make rational decisions, and we can come at our life from a place of knowingness and control and harmony. So whether you're mom or not, getting back into alignment, getting back into our bodies, and resetting quickly in these phases of stress that are natural in everyone's life that we live today is going to do one of two things, or both of them. One, it's going to help us not miss all the beautiful moments around us, whether we have children, these moments of being present with them and witnessing all that they're experiencing and going through. And two, like I said, it's going to help us get back into alignment quickly when the reality of stress hits. So I want to talk about stress for a minute because I think that when we hear that word, it obviously feels stressful. But the reality is that stress is actually a good thing. So there's a term called eustress, spelled EU, stress. And this is the stress that, thank God, we have this stress in our life. This is the kind of stress that comes from work, family, owning a home, having responsibilities. This is like actually gratitude stress, even though it doesn't feel that way, but this is the kind of stress that we're designed to have. And so this episode is really around, in general, this kind of stress. But the tools that you learn here are also going to help you in those phases of distress that we all unfortunately experience at times, whether it's like grief or death of a loved one, or that crazy stress that comes at maybe 2 a.m. when we got hit with something that we didn't expect, bad news or otherwise. The reality is what's happening with our eustress, our normal stress that we're supposed to experience, is the normal neurochemical process that is supposed to happen. I'm going to walk you through all that. It's supposed to be a quick response. We get into stress, we assess our situation, and then we get back into alignment. But because we're living in general in a constant state of stress, or what we perceive as chronic stress, we're staying in that loop. So I want to get you to a place of strengthening the muscle of getting you back into alignment, getting back with yourself again so that you can make these decisions. You can respond from a place of clarity, calm, and harmony rather than react and fly off the handle, because then we regret it and we don't feel so good. It is very important, actually, as humans, that we experience stress. And I think this is a really important concept because it helps us understand that the goal of life is not to eliminate all stress. One, it's not realistic. Two, it's actually not good for us. I'm going to touch on that in a minute with a story. But also, the goal is to be able to reset quickly from this stress because that's biochemically how we are supposed to function. So we're going to get back to that place. I'm going to end this episode with some free tools and resources for you. So make sure you stay for that. So I want to walk you through really simply kind of what's happening in our body when we experience stress, because again, this is something that we experience multiple times throughout our day. We are basically intended to have something happen in our environment. We literally have something called primitive reflexes and reflexes that help us respond quickly to what's going on. And then we're supposed to clear out that stress and move on. So basically, you think about like if you hear a loud noise, right? Something falls behind you. What actually happens in that moment very quickly, we shrug our shoulders, we turn to the response, our pupils dilate, and you think about this from a survival perspective, like that is all intended to help us quickly see, do we need to fight? Do we need to flee? Is our life being threatened? And actually, there's really cool information behind the reasoning of shrugging our shoulders. It's to look big. So all this neurology is the exact same that it was way back in the day when we were living outside amidst predators, right? So this serves a very important purpose. What happened back then and what still happens in the animal kingdom is they turn towards a stimulus. They realize, okay, nothing threatening. Someone dropped a book, say, and you get back to your life. Animals, when they experience stress, will often shake or move, and that's how they kind of clear out the cortisol and the stress chemicals. So this is a very beautiful thing that happens in cases where Maybe we need to assess if there's something dangerous going on around us and we can run or we can stay. Again, this is for our survival. But what happens when we have chronic stress in our life? What happens when it's not just a quick sound of something dropping behind us, but maybe it's the coworker sitting next to us that drives us crazy? Maybe it's something stressful going on in our children's lives. You ask any mom, we're only as good as our children are. So no matter what's going on in their lives, it's like we take that on. So that is not a quick response moment. We are literally carrying the stress with us day to day. Think about, another example. Think about I know we've done this. I am not the only one who's done this, but maybe you're driving and as you're driving, someone cuts you off. Some days, totally fine. I can handle it. World is beautiful. Rose-colored glasses on. And other days you're like, dude, you just picked the wrong woman. And for maybe 20 minutes of your car ride, you are just yelling at that person in your head. Or, of course this happened. Like, what is he thinking? Like, you are just creating a story about that person. That person is stuck with you way longer than they've actually been next to you in their car. You are carrying that stress in your head. Or you just experienced like a stressful interaction with someone in your family. Or again, a coworker. You're leaving the office, you're driving home, and you are still playing out that story in your head. Physiologically, viscerally, in our organs, your body does not know the difference between the event actually still happening and you playing it out in your head. So I actually tell this often to my dad, like when that person cuts us off and we carry it with us all day and you're going around and telling everybody that story all day and how mad you are punishing yourself all day for literally a moment that probably was 5 seconds of your life. So whether it's the person driving next to us cutting us off, or your child and what they're going through, or your coworker, or someone you're in a relationship, whatever that is, we are literally training our body to live in this chronic state of stress. The beautiful thing is we can untrain it. And if you don't believe me, I'm going to prove that to you with a really interesting study about how people were actually convinced and viscerally, physiologically responded with a stress response to a blue square when they were conditioned to do so. So if we can train our bodies to slide into a state of stress, what if we start to train them to get out of it? It's exactly what you're going to learn from this episode, along with 1, maybe 2 free tools that are going to do it with you, for you, simplify the process. All you have to do is show up and you are going to train this muscle of getting out of your mental loop. Okay, so going back to physiologically, what happens when we have a moment of stress? I want to inspire you and empower you to know some things about your brain, because I don't know why we don't all learn this in school, because our brains are fascinating. And sometimes simply knowing what's going on helps create an awareness so that we know when it's happening. And then we can come from a place of making informed decisions and, there I go again, living in the mental loop. Well, let me get back over here, right? So when we have these moments of stress, there's essentially, and I'm really simplifying it, but there's essentially 2 parts of our brain that are activated. 1 is our amygdala. When you hear amygdala, I want you to think fear, response, figuring out what's going on, remembering that this is a threatening stimulus. I'll talk about that in a minute with an example. Or we're in our frontal cortex. Frontal cortex is like where we really want to live. This is where we're in charge, we're in control, we're making very rational decisions. They call the frontal cortex the CEO of the brain. And the reason it's nicknamed that is because when you're sitting in your frontal cortex, you're like, I got this, I got that, you do this, you do that. You were like the CEO of your life. So let's get you out of living in your amygdala, because if you're under a state of chronic stress, that is where you are living. And let's start to strengthen the muscle and bridge the gap between the stressful moment, getting stuck in that mental loop of your amygdala, and getting back into the frontal cortex. So again, I'm going to keep saying this. This isn't about eliminating stress from our life. This is about strengthening the muscles so that when stress pulls us out, when stress pulls us into that loop, into our amygdala, we have the ability, we have the awareness, we have the tools, and we have the muscles, because we've trained them, to get back into alignment, to get back into the CEO aspect of our brain. Sound good? I think so, right? If you're a woman and it feels like your brain has 47 tabs open, you've got the kids asking questions, texts coming in, dinner to make, work to finish, and somehow you're still trying to think clearly, this is not a mindset issue. It is not a personality flaw. This is physiology and your nervous system stuck in urgency mode. I created this urgency reset, a simple 2-minute shift using brainwave-based tools to help your nervous system downshift so you can come back into clarity and presence. Because the goal isn't just managing the chaos, it's being present for the moments that you don't want to miss. So you don't look back later in life and realize the years with the people you love or just your own life slipped by. Click the links. This is a mini masterclass. It's like 15 minutes, and I cannot wait for you guys to check this out. Back to the episode. All right, so our bodies are so beautifully designed and our brains are so beautifully designed that, it helped us hundreds of years ago as far as our survival. But when we use the same brain chemistry in today's world, it doesn't always work so well in our favor. So for instance, there is an emotional memory part to the amygdala. So way back in the day, say, we were living in our environment, we were living outside, we had to go down to a river to get water, perhaps for our family. And while we're going down to the river to get water, we notice a pile of rocks and there's movement in there and we see a snake, right? So our amygdala is activated to kind of assess the situation, figure out what's going on. Actually, both parts of the brain are activated because one's assessing and one's kind of like reacting. So it gets us out of the situation. But what happens is we forever remember, okay, that area isn't safe. What can happen is we can actually get stuck in this loop where going forward, any set of rocks can trigger this stress response. So you think about that in our life, right? Like we have these stressful experiences, like maybe it's our coworker next to us at work who sometimes triggers us, but every time we see that coworker, we're put into this state of stress. Or what if even on our commute to work, we're put into this state of stress, right? It's like we are punishing ourselves and getting us into this, what's meant to be a quick response for survival, we are living in it. If you've ever wondered why you remember bad things more than good things, why you remember like put downs more than compliments, we are literally hardwired for negativity because it's essential for our survival. So going back to the snake in the rocks example, if you didn't remember that going by those rocks down by the river could potentially kill you, that could be a problem for our survival. So we are literally hardwired for negativity. This is kind of just a sidebar, but a really important takeaway from our brains so that you understand, I think we can so easily beat ourselves up over negative comments, or we can be really hard on ourselves. And I think, again, just creating awareness and observing that we're doing that, and maybe even understanding that we're hardwired for that, helps you remember how important it is to have positive input in your life, right? This is why I surround myself with positive people, positive quotes, positive books. Like we have to constantly really be putting positive input in us and around us in order to negate that negativity. I think that's a really important take home, especially for someone who tends to live or you're stuck currently in a mental loop, or you ever have been stuck in a mental loop. Again, think about the coworker analogy or anyone in your life who's stressful and how much of your life you're carrying that with you. Well, can you make an impact in that? Can you take control of that by maybe in your commute to work, instead of playing the mental story and getting yourself in a state of stress, can you play some positive background noise? Can you listen to an empowering podcast? Can you maybe replay this episode so that you know what's going on and you can start to take control over it? Can you maybe phone a friend, like one of your favorite people that just helps walk you through these situations or makes you laugh? Can you even just play like something funny or look at something funny in the morning? I'm constantly, like I said, putting good input in, and there's days when I don't even feel like getting a ton of information in that I have to process. I'll literally watch news bloopers or funny wipeouts. It's just about counteracting the negative loop that tends to live in our brain with all we're juggling. Okay, so here's why I actually want to, again, share some science with you to prove these concepts of how powerful our brain is. I think you guys have all heard this story. I'm going to share a different study in a minute, but the story of how powerful visualization is for athletes, right? So there has been anecdotal stories shared in books, in videos, in episodes. I'm sure you've heard them about the power of visualizing and practicing something, whether it's playing the piano, shooting basketball hoops, or otherwise. There's been studies where people take basketball players, basketball teams, and half of them practice free throw shots and the other half visualize them. Or people learning the piano, half of them actually play and half of them visualize. So you think about from an empowering place, how powerful our neurochemistry is to what's actually happening in our body and the output coming out. So you can think of that from like an empowering place and these things that we can do. You can also think about, again, like when you're visualizing that fight that either happened before or is potentially in your mind at least about to happen with that coworker, with your spouse, with one of your children, you are like training your body that it's happening, right? So when we think about this from like a health perspective, heart health, hormonal health, we know the impact that chronic stress has on our body. Like we are that powerful that we don't even have to be experiencing it. We can tell ourselves a story that we are experiencing it and it's as if it happened. So there's a really interesting study about a blue square. So you think about there's like all these obviously threatening things in our life, survival threatening things, and then the things that we perceive as stressful, right? Nobody would ever think, I assume nobody listening has ever had a bad run-in with a blue square. So these researchers took this concept of can we actually create a stress response, a conditioned stress response in participants of the study by simply showing them a blue square. So they basically taught these participants that they were going to see these different colors and shaped objects pop up, and that when a blue square popped up, they were going to get a shock. So they didn't end up shocking the people, but just the thought that that's what was going to happen when a blue square popped up, these participants' amygdala, the mental loop, the fear response, the stress was activated. We are that powerful. So I want to take that concept now, and I want to empower you with tools, a knowing and understanding and a how-to get you out of this loop. I want to talk about macro and micro. Think about getting out of this loop as a muscle that we have to strengthen. Again, let's go back to that. We're hardwired for negativity. If you hear 9 compliments and 1 put down, you're going to remember that 1 put down, right? So think about this mental loop as a muscle that there's kind of a lot working against us. And I don't mean to say that to disempower you. I'm saying it to give you accountability as like, this is something we have to work on every single day. And here's where the macro and micro come in. Macro, like macro self-care and macro ability to work on this is the things that we do when we have chunks of time to focus on this. The micro are the little things that we can do every single day that stack up. So how do we physically and physiologically get out of this loop? How do we get out of our amygdala and back into our frontal cortex? How do we train our bodies to do that? Because again, remember, the whole goal of this episode is not to eliminate stress from your life. We can't, we shouldn't, we won't. But it's how do you, when you get out of alignment, when you get pulled into a stressful state, how do you actually quickly reset and get back in? How do you walk in at the end of a really long day and just like need things to be calm and you walk in and it's chaos? How do you reset so that you can actually be with your family? You get cut off on the way to work. You get pulled into stress. How do you reset so that person that cut you off isn't torturing you all day long? So first, let's talk about macro, and then we're going to talk about micro. Micro is going to be the more realistic way that we do this. Micro is the thing that you're going to be doing every day to strengthen this muscle. So macro, getting you into your frontal cortex, getting you into your body, getting you into your heart. How do we do it? It's essentially all about mindfulness, getting into our parasympathetic nervous system. So that's like our rest and digest, our chill, relax. This is where we can sleep good. This is pretty much the opposite state of where most of us live for the majority of our day. And when you're in this loop, I think hearing those words can be very overwhelming, because the reality is when you're stuck in a loop, you don't feel like you can access the relaxed state. But again, it's like a muscle. So as we work it at the beginning, it's going to feel awkward. You're going to feel like you're doing it wrong. You're going to feel like it's not happening, it's not working. But over time, you are going to realize how quickly you can reset. So what is a macro example that maybe you fit in on the weekend? Maybe you aim for like once a weekend, or maybe it's even once a month, to be honest. It could be doing something like a yoga class. It could be a meditation practice. It could be getting a massage. It's anything where you're basically creating an opportunity, creating an environment for yourself where you can just let go, where you can let the busy mind stop. And I'm someone whose mind is going all the time, to be honest. So, like, even when I'm laying on the massage table, my head's kind of going. What I visualize is above my brain, there's all these, in the comics where there's like the caption bubble and you see what the people are saying. I picture all these bubbles above my head with the thoughts in it. And I just want to like kind of smush them all together, minimize them, or just let them go, like let them float away. Anything that's meant for me will stay with me. I'm not going to forget the most important details, the most important things that I need to do in my life. What's most important in this moment is strengthening this muscle. It is a muscle for us, especially busy women, to get present. It's a muscle we haven't used in a long time to get back into our body, to get back into our heart, to let some of the details go that we're constantly juggling. So again, remember, you are going to feel like you're doing it wrong. You're going to feel like I'm sitting here trying to be present and I have all these thoughts in my head. It's okay. Just the awareness of what's going on is huge. That's a win. Let's talk about micro, because this is what's like super realistic and accessible for most of us. This starts with just 5 minutes. This is taking 5 minutes in the morning, first thing. This is a whole other concept for another time, but it's that first 5 minutes when you wake up, you are actually primed to train your subconscious in any way you want. So you think about that. First 5 minutes when you wake up, you are primed to train your subconscious into any state you want. How are you currently training it? What do we typically do the first 5 minutes of our day? Most people, I think, rush into the day, maybe caffeinate, hit it, get it going, get on our phone, get on our emails, get on our socials. I mean, I've definitely been there, and I'm not saying this is an everyday thing. Like, there's times when I choose to do that, just an awareness, and do it less often than more often. So the first 5 minutes of the day, here's what I suggest you do. Stay off digital. That's one of the biggest things. Other thing is control your light. So try not to get major sources of blue or white light into your eyes, because that's going to get you out of this brain state. So you see a lot of like content I'm sharing is around red light in the morning and red light at night. First 5 minutes, super important. I'll share my favorite light sources below. Even more powerful than that, and these are the tools that I'm going to give you from this episode because it's so important for me to help you guys do this. It's so powerful. I'm going to share a self-with challenge and the connection code. Self-with challenge. Every single morning, I'm going to walk you through how to completely change your neurochemistry, get you out of that mental loop by just doing some intentional steps with me every morning. I'm going to walk you through every day exactly what to do. So that's an incredible resource. I'll share that with you below. The other one, it's called the connection code. So the connection code is a way to literally get back connected with yourself, get you mindful and present through basically play, which is really fun. So remember, we want to get out of our amygdala and into our frontal cortex. We want to spend more time in the aspect of our brain that is the CEO of our life, because what does this look like when we're spending time there? It looks like we're getting it all done. We're able to like bounce from thing to thing, being completely present with whoever or whatever is in front of us. This feels like at the end of the day, you had all the time to do all the things. It's the complete opposite of feeling like, oh my God, there's not enough time. How do I get it all done? I know you've lived there. I live there too sometimes. But it's having these tools to get back in our body. The connection code is really fun. I basically give you a video and a printout. And this is a variety of ways that you're going to personalize for you in how you get out of your head into your body. So one of the aspects of the connection code is about getting out into the environment, right? Getting outside. The power of just stepping outside in nature for 5 minutes is so huge. And it literally gets us back into our frontal cortex. So that's one of them. Another part of the connection code is like play, right? So I love my bike, like a 5-minute pedal on my bike around the neighborhood gets me out of my amygdala, gets me out of my head and back into my body. So the connection code is this really beautiful way to incorporate more play and ease and flow into your life. And the byproduct of all that is getting you into the CEO of your brain so that you can do everything that you do much more seamlessly, easily, in a harmonious state, and allows you, again, to be present with whatever or whoever is in front of you. If you're someone who's in the loop, or if you're someone who's kind of thinking through this process and you're like, okay, so great, I get out of my amygdala, I get out of my mental loop, I'm in my frontal cortex, so I'm present, but how do I know what to do? Like, how do I know what to do in those moments with my kid? Say, okay, I'll describe a situation in our house. I'm sure this is really relatable to a lot of moms. It's dinner time. and there's so much going on. Okay, I now know I can get out of my amygdala and into my frontal cortex, but the reality is there's still chaos around me. So how do I know what to do in the moments? The most beautiful and easy thing, takeaway, once you start incorporating this into your life, when you're present, you don't have to figure anything out. One of the most beautiful things about the present moment is that when we're in it, we don't have to figure anything out. So often we either say we're with our children and they're going through maybe some strong emotions. And as a parent, we're fixers, right? So like, what do I do in this moment? Maybe we even start future tripping, like, oh my God, what if this turns into that and this turns into that? Or what if we're referencing the past, right? Like, of course, she's getting upset about this. She always does this and I don't know what to do. And like, we get in our head, right? That's living in our head. When we can get into the present moment, when we can get into our heart, when we can get into our body, all we have to do is be there. All our kids want is for us to be next to them, holding space for their emotions. All we want is to be there for ourselves, holding space, allowing us to feel our emotions. Think about when you were little. Think about if you had big emotions, you weren't expecting or wanting anyone to fix them for you. You probably just wanted someone to be next to you and sit with you through them. So I want you to think about that in regards to whether it's your children's emotions and the chaos that's going around or your stress, so that you know once you get into the present moment, the work is done because there is ease and a clarity and a knowingness once you get there. So again, if you're someone who's hearing this and you're like, great, I do this and then what? The then what takes care of itself. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed that episode. Would love to hear your feedback. Go ahead and leave me a review. Let me know what is going to be your main takeaway from this episode. Go ahead and also hit that share button. Send this episode to someone else in your life who needs this information. And most importantly, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes where I continue to share these free tips and tools to help you create deeper connection with yourselves and one another. I'll see you soon.